Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking installment of The Matt Brown Show. This is the Secrets of Scale series where I'm connecting you to founders who are scaling their companies rather rapidly. And one of those individuals who is guilty as charged is the founder and CEO of Kennected Reach. Devin, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me on, Matt. Look forward to hanging out, talking about scaling and all the challenges and successes with that.
I know, right? And there's more challenges than successes these days, if you ask me. But
I agree. Touche. Yeah, I agree with that.
You're the one with all the success, bro. That's why. That's why you're here. But we're going to get into all of that. I spoke about you coming onto the show last week when I was chatting to Usman, CEO of XIQ. So great to have you here. You guys are really doing a cool thing. You've got an amazing product. So super pumped to have you here, man.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, man. So tell our viewers around the world a little bit about yourself. Paint a picture for us. Like, how did Kennected actually come about? What problem are you solving? Just give us the context for what you're up to.
Yeah, so Kennected is a sales enablement platform that has a LinkedIn first approach. A lot of sales enablement products, they want you to start with email and buy data and throw 10 or 12 different things together to try to get a meeting or an outcome. And we found that LinkedIn already has our dream prospects on it. How do we get started on LinkedIn, then get them into email and then get their data, then text them, then call them? And so we're a sales enablement ecosystem, focuses around LinkedIn first and LinkedIn education. And it all started really when I was 15. 15 was when I became an entrepreneur, and I started out of adversity. So I grew up in a broken home. Mom and dad never married. My dad was a drug dealer. My mom was a factory worker, and, divided household, never married. And when I was 15, my sister got diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer called medulloblastoma. It attacks your adrenaline gland. And it's very, very hard to even survive the surgery, let alone walk and talk and be normal again. And I'll fast forward just a little bit. She beat all those odds. She's still with us and living as normal life as she can. But when that happened, my dad, again, didn't live under the same roof, but came around and admitted he was struggling with a heroin addiction. And then he wasn't around for a year, like boom, poof, disappeared. And my mom, she goes, hey, like it or not, in 90 days, you're going to have to live in the Riley home. And that's basically a homeless shelter inside the hospital where my sister was being treated and ended up spending just over 2 years of her life in this hospital. And so I was like, man, that's going to suck. I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to have to move schools, go to inner city schools. And so I knew sneakers had value. So any of my sneakerheads listening, I got started by flipping shoes, Nikes, Jordans, Yeezys. I'm a big collector nowadays. I don't really flip shoes at all anymore. I do a little bit of trading, but yeah, I just collect. But that's where I got my start. I started selling Nikes, Jordans, Yeezys. And you buy low, sell high, right? It's the most classic form of entrepreneurship. And the reason I knew sneakers had value was my father. He always had a few hundred pairs of shoes and was always trying to get the releases. And, if he messed up, he was the gifter in the family. So like if he felt bad about something, he always bought you something. Well, that was always shoes for me. And so I had a lot of shoes myself. I started by selling the shoes that my dad had bought me. And then I got into learning how the releases worked and waiting in line and, waiting 12 hours for a pair of shoes at finish line before they even open, and then getting, bombarded. And it was just crazy, crazy times. Sneaker game's completely different nowadays, but that's where I got my start. At 15, I was able to buy a scooter. I saved up. I did like 3 or 4 sneaker flips, was able to buy a scooter. From that scooter, I put just over 5,000 miles in one summer on it, going back and forth between different sides of town, buying shoes, flipping shoes. If you guys know what Craigslist is, this was before Facebook Marketplace. I was flipping sneakers on Craigslist, buying shoes on Craigslist. And, it's where I really cut my teeth. But from sneakers, I went to digital marketing right after high school. And while I was doing digital marketing, Matt, if I built your website, you would then ask me, well, now how do I get traffic, or how do I get leads, or how do I get the conversation with someone that knows me, likes me, and possibly would want to buy from me? And I got tired of being able to, being asked that question, not having a great answer. And so Kennected, I drew it out on a napkin, found a front end and back end developer, put in the 14 to 16 hour days that everyone knows is necessary for a few years. And here we are today.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, it's kind of like it's the old adage, like, you're either trading baseball cards or you're selling lemonade on the side of the street. Your version is like, well, I was flipping shoes.
Yeah. I was flipping sneakers, and I had all kinds of odds and ends. I tried baling hay. Funny story about that. It was like the second day I got this like little baling hay gig on top, while I was flipping shoes, and it paid like $30 an hour. I was like, that's kind of high, and I'm 15 years old. So second day I'm there, and this llama, I'm petting it, and it just spits in my face. So I did all kinds of like odds and ends on top of the shoes, but yeah, that's where I cut my teeth.
Cool, buddy. So let's talk about Kennected. So you guys are scaling a lot. You're doing a $30 million raise right now. You guys, all I ever hear is great things. I've put maybe 3 or 4 clients onto your platform just in the last few weeks. And Chad, and we're mutual friends, Chad Burmeister, a good guy. And work with him. Your team are amazing. Just full disclosure, I'm also a customer, but for very good reason. So let's unpack that. What is, in your experience, is that reason, Devin? Like, why is it that you guys are scaling so much? Because you know what I mean? Like, this is the secret of scale. Like, it's a hard thing to scale anything, especially a business. So why are you guys scaling? What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, being a tech-focused podcast, I will talk about product first. So, from a visionary standpoint, from a CEO standpoint, every question or every product meeting I'm in starts with the mantra that I originally had written down, which is save time, simplify opportunity. Matt, you don't have 10 hours a day to do prospecting as you're trying to scale your business. The CEOs listening to this don't have that type of time either. So how can a product save time and simplify the opportunity in a few clicks, a few connections, a few integrations? And that's the challenge that we continually try to beat up and innovate. And as we're doing this market roll-up strategy we're currently leading, it's where does this product save time, simplify opportunity in this vertical, And so, putting the product first is mission critical as far as, is it truly easy? And then going second is we eat our own dog food. I meet a lot of tech founders that I'm like, well, your product's so great. What's your own success? And that's like, oh yeah, we just sell it, or we don't really use our own product. I'm like, what? That makes zero sense. So still to this day, over 70% of net new sales is driven by our own product. I mean, we're a lead gen product, so I hope we can create our own leads and be able to convert those customers. So we eat our own dog food. And then point number 3 that has really led to our success is I look at myself as a CEO. I'm at the bottom of the org chart. A lot of CEOs, of course, on the traditional org chart, you're at the very, very top, and the buck stops with you, and everything is me and my vision and blah, blah, blah. Of course, I'm a hard ruler on where we need to go, but I trust my team. I empower my team. I invest in my team to be able to make decisions, successes, and failures, right? I allow core leadership at Kennected to truly blaze their own path with the vision that I set out for them to execute on. And I find that a lot of people that they talk about scaling and they talk about adding team members, but you see them going from like 2 to 10 employees. It's like they're back and forth. And it's they don't have an operating system that they're living by and breathing by. And they're not trusting their team members to innovate, scale, and be able to build their business. I find that as a major holdup for a lot of tech businesses and tech founders.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that, right? But it's really the crux of it. I want to start with your vision because I've covered this a few times on the show now, but it keeps coming up because when I talk to a founder and I go, "You're like, is this business that you have today the one that you set out to build?" In many cases, it's not. It's like a version of it. Like I just got off the phone before this interview with Adam Apollo. He's like I don't know, he's like a hardcore like scientist guy, and he's done this amazing like 4DR blah 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 thing in the crypto space. I don't even understand it, right? But the guy's clearly a genius. He's way smarter than me. And he was saying the same thing. He said to me, when we set out, we wanted to disrupt the social media engine, and now we become a contribution engine that runs on the blockchain. You know what I mean? Like it's a different thing. And I've had so many founders say the same thing, dude. Like they set out to do X and they wound up doing Y. And it's because you're pivoting and you're trying to figure out, well, where's the right space? And, for us to scale, because oftentimes there might be a gap in the market, but there's no market in the gap. You know what I mean? So you have to pivot and change, and this is why you wind up with statements and eventualities like the one I've just described. My question though, Devin, is has that happened to you, and how has your vision evolved from Kennected from day one to where it is today?
So I can confidently say the original vision of saving time, simplifying opportunity with being your lead flow partner, that has stayed true. Now, there's been evolutions of a better product, a more comprehensive product, because I'm a big believer in, selling your first $500,000 to $1 million in ARR before you go out and start raising money. So build a product that is MVP, barely works, start selling. Like don't get yourself in a spot where you're going to have to go sell your soul to get some capital in. And so, of course, product is changing. We're in our third version of product currently. And now we've built the third version of the product, Kennected Reach, open-ended to allow the integrations of acquisitions. But to answer the question about has my vision changed or gotten bigger, it's gotten a lot bigger. I realized that sales enablement is a very fragmented industry. And ever since the Sales Loft outreaches and the big dogs that are carrying the billion-dollar valuations have come out, no one stepped in and said, this is too complicated, too expensive, too hard. How can we streamline that into one single centralized platform? And so it's just been like, oh, yep, you use Sales Loft or you use Outreach, and you got to buy 8 other products to get the result. Right. And so I'm on a mission to, launch and create the category we call growth as a service, to step on the gas, GAAS. It's a trademark, it's a coin term that we've been starting to market in the last 6 months. And so, we want to continue to help businesses step on the gas. And it's just, I thought that you buy a company here, you buy a company there, and you get a little bit of funding here, a little bit of funding there. And really, you could just roll them all up. You could start doing these LOIs and doing these rope acquisitions. And these big capital partners love that. They love to be able to see a CEO build these relationships, get into the nitty gritty, and be able to tie together a much bigger picture, be able to create category worthy product. And, 4 years ago when we first started, I simply wanted to build a multi-million-dollar annual recurring business and get into technology, so it's gotten a lot bigger.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This idea of scaling through acquisitions doesn't come up very often. It just isn't. Like guys are looking at product-led growth, all these ideas that they kind of, modus operandi, product-led growth, unit economics, product market fit. You hear these things time and time again. What you don't hear is a company at your stage, which is you're not like Series C, you know what I mean? But you're doing a Series C strategy, meaning you've reached a point typically at a mature stage company where that is really one of the last few remaining options for you to scale is to acquire, so what Salesforce did. They acquired, Slack and all these other companies because they were at mature stage and they just wanted to add to their profit centers across a number of different acquisitions. So you hear that, but later. So I'm curious, when did you wake up one morning and go, yo, like, this is what I want to do to scale this? Like, because your platform in and of itself, because it sits and integrates with LinkedIn and it drives all these sequences and connections and things like that. And your new version of your product is way better than it was when we first registered, or I first registered some time ago. So anyway, so your product, it's just by virtue of what it is, it lends itself to economics, right? Scalenomics, as I like to call it, because of where it is and what it does and what it sits. It's a network building tool, among other things. But then you had that, and then you went the scale through acquisition route. So walk us through what was your thinking around that, because it's also a space that a lot of people are fearful of.
Yeah, it didn't. I just didn't fall out of bed one day. I was like, I'm going to go grow by acquisition. It was, I have an advisory group called Founders Advisors based out of Birmingham, Alabama. They've got some notorious exits under their belt. Feel free to shoot a quick Google search on who they are and what they're about. But they tracked our growth, and we would meet and talk, and they sent me a slide deck one day, and they said, look, these are all the broken puzzle pieces, and we see your product being the foundation for them all to come together. What's your thought on a market roll-up? And that was kind of the summary of the email. And I said, wow, I kind of like that. And we did our first little acquisition, and it was just a game changer in valuation and the way investors in the market thought about us. And I was like, let's go all in. I agree. It's typically a Series C or D type of strategy. But I mean, guys, the entire market and what is normal is changing, right? You used to be able to go burn cash for 10 years and not be profitable, and that was cool. Now they want to see profitable businesses and lean and mean and efficient, right? I mean, that's where their people are turning to. And so, I think it's a breath of fresh air, especially some of these bigger capital groups that have a lot of dry powder. They have to deploy a lot of capital, and I'm giving them the opportunity that makes sense to be able to, deploy 30, 40, 50, $100 million, and they need that.
Cool. And on that bombshell, we're just going to take a quick break. The Matt Brown Show is presented by Carafin, an investment bank that offers and supports direct private investments in U.S. operating companies. Over the past 20 years, investors have placed over $1.2 billion of private debt and equity in more than 100 companies through Carafin and its affiliates. Carafin leverages technology to empower its community of investors to deploy their capital far more efficiently than ever before, and connects their community of engaged investors with worthy companies. Invest portions of your portfolio in direct private investments today. Visit carafin.com/Matt Brown Show for more. And we're back. Devin, you mentioned product up front, and I also touched on this idea of product-led growth. Is that true, this idea of product-led growth? Do you feel like it lives up to its reputation when we are talking about scaling a company?
Yeah, if I'm being transparent, and I'm a no BS kind of guy, Kennected never really did a good job of product-led growth. It became an initiative late Q4 of last year, and we're doing tremendously better. It's something that we should have taken more seriously from day one. I think you need to prioritize it in your business. I'm living proof it's not the only way to scale and get the attention and grab the market share. We did it through brute force and, having ingenious product that was simple to use and cost effective, right? But as far as product-led growth, I don't have the track record to sit here and give you true insight on yes or no. All I know is it's starting to show its fruits, and it's showing its potential, but it's something that we haven't done very well.
So what do you attribute it to? Is it the fact that you have been able to build a great team around this? Is it a great culture? Like, if you were to hang your hat on something that says, listen, yeah, this is, we did it differently. We didn't do the product-led growth idea. This is what it is. What is that thing?
Yeah, it's putting our people first. Our people are our culture, and we created an environment where people feel like they have unlimited growth path and they're heard, they have a voice, they can really make change and allow that collaboration. People first, product second, profit third. It's a little mantra we always talk about here at Kennected, and it's paid off well. As far as the product-led growth side of it, definitely something we should have paid attention to. But our people, right, our team, got us to where we're at. And this year, just Kennected standalone will be probably 14 million annual recurring. I think is where we're pacing to be. Just Kennected, not the acquisitions or anything else. So it's respectable numbers without a huge focus on PLG. It's just team and great product.
My question is, how much scale is enough here? Like, what are you actually trying to do? Are you trying to build this thing to offload it at some point in the future? Or is this something you want to hold on to for 10 years and see where it might go? What's in your vision, in your mind? Where are you wanting to take this thing in terms of scale?
Yeah, so I personally want to get to the 100 million ARR side through the acquisitions and growth and team side. And then once that category, growth as a service or stepping on the gas has really been planted, I think it's a 2 to 5 year kind of path that we're walking down here. Then sell it into a strategic that can continue to run that category and continue to demand the respect that it's earned.
I was chatting to an account director at Salesforce, and she was like, listen, if I wanted to sell a Slack license, I wouldn't even know who to talk to at Salesforce. And they've gone and acquired this. And my previous company also had a group, and it became a real headache, total ball ache, actually, to be quite frank, when it came to integrating these different teams and processes. And it's nice to go, cool, we're going to just add, are you planning to integrate this so it becomes one proposition? Or is this kind of like, here's a portfolio of the group, we're not going to integrate, but they're complementary in nature, and as a consequence, this is how we're going to hit that 100 million, ARR number?
Yeah, the way we've been executing up to this point is we take the best of the acquisition, we bake it into the Kennected product, but we let the brand, whoever the brand is, whatever their name is, we let it stand and let it operate as it usually is. A couple of tweaks to the SOPs, a couple of tweaks to payroll, legal, and finance, but we plan to let the entity stand and take the best of the best and roll it into the Kennected ecosystem. Very similar to the Procter and Gamble type of approach, where they own 10 different types of toothpaste or soaps, but it's all under the P&G brand, and the best is their winner.
Fair enough. Speaking of scale, I love this idea of you can only scale a company to the extent that you do. I'm curious to find out from you, how have you scaled yourself in this process? Like, in what area have you grown so that you could, do the things that you're doing, acquiring companies, and walk us through, in the context of scale, how have you been able to really scale your own self as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, there's a handful of things that I've really paid attention to, but first and foremost, the mindset, right? We all overcomplicate things, think of fear, but more often than not, I'm making sure that I'm speaking positivity and the original vision and taking the action towards where we need to go. Of course, I have the doubts. Of course, I have is this the right move, right? Of course, I have those thought processes, but you'll never hear me negatively speak or negatively act towards this uncomfortable feeling that may enter our mind, but also putting myself first. So a lot of people you would ask and they would say, yeah, my business, then my family, and then it's me. And then you see their gain 100 pounds and like really start to experience burnout, right? And so 2 years ago, I started going down a fitness journey and realizing that I have to come first. My family comes second. My business comes third. right? And so if I'm mentally, physically, spiritually not there, it's hard to show up for my family, which is my foundation. And if my foundation is rocky, it's hard to step into the business with confidence and be able to say, hey, we can get through this no matter what. And so the realization and the big change I made was making sure my fitness and spiritual side is in line. My family's confident and believing in the bigger vision. And I can bring that into the workplace and be very confident that we're going to continue to execute.
It's a really important point that you're touching on, right? Because I don't think entrepreneur health is really discussed that much. Because, like, think about this whole conversation. We spent 25 minutes talking about scale, and product and raising money and acquiring companies and so on and so forth. And then, and by the way, like, I do tons of these things every month, and you're the first one to raise it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
But it affects all of us. It's like, especially for men, like and women, but most of the guys that come on the show are men for some weird reason. Well, I think we can have another discussion about that, about why there aren't enough, female-backed venture companies. So, but like even today, dude, like I was actually going to cancel this. I was actually like, I'm actually really flat. Like I'm really flat. Like I've been working my fucking ass off lately, like really, really pushing, dude, like hard. And training, right? So doing physical exercise, but then, also eating well and that kind of thing, but even then, like you reach a point today, like I'm just not myself. I don't feel like I'm myself. And that's the thing. And I learned this when I first got to the States about 7 months ago. And it was like shit, like I was just being like, didn't have a home, coming from South Africa and that kind of thing. And I was just really overextended. It didn't have a customer, like it didn't have really, like I didn't know what I was doing, had no network. It was really difficult and uncertain time. And I was sitting at my desk and I was just like, it was this weird feeling where I just didn't feel like I could do anything, no matter what I did, it was going to be a fuck up. Like I wouldn't be able to do something as well as I could do. And my sister was here and she said to me, she said, Matt, I've never seen you like this. You need to step away and go for a run, and it's this idea of like, if you want to get out of your head, you must get into your body. And so I went for a run, cleared my head, but I learned like you actually just need to stop. And my problem is that I'm so achievement driven. Like a lot of my self-worth is driven through my sense of achievement. So if I don't feel like I'm achieving something, that messes with me. You know what I'm saying? And so you really need to come to terms with all this, because I think there's this idea that I also subscribe to, in that ambition is like a double-edged sword. And that it's great to have all this success, but at what price? Do you know what I mean? And oftentimes I think we try and build these big businesses, but we don't think about, well, what's it going to be like when I'm at 150 people, at 300 people? Am I going to dig it? Because to your point, you're a dad, I'm a dad. Like I like spending quality time with my kids. You know what I mean? I want to be there when they have these extracurricular activities or what have you. And if I can't be there, like that's a price you pay. It's not like a financial cost, it's a human cost, right? It's a founder cost. And so these are the things that I don't think that we talk about enough, or that we are real enough to discuss on a podcast like this.
Yeah, I'm the first to admit, you got 4.5 years of me running Kennected. First 2 years, I was, business first, family second, me third. And I mean, I gained like 100 pounds almost. Like with the scenario I walked through, that was me, right? And now I've lost that weight. I'm back down and I'm arguably in the best shape I've ever been. There may have been when I was racing a little bit better shape, but the business list, the to-do list, the achievements that you're talking about, they're never going to give you the fulfillment that a foundation of your home and your spiritual and your fitness will give you. Like I've achieved some really cool things at a very young age. Entrepreneur of the Year, Ernst & Young, Inc. 5000, top 500 companies 2 years in a row, over 100 employees, yada, 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 yada. Every single one of those, I don't even think about now. Like I wanted all these things. I'll tell you, a materialistic item. I really wanted a Ferrari, right? I have a Ferrari. I freaking forget I have it most of the time because it's in my commercial garage unit, and it's like it's unbelievable. Like when you truly go first and your foundation second, everything else starts to take care of itself. I don't know how to explain it other than you're free. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You just got to kind of go through the journey. And I can't stand it when people on podcasts are like, this is the formula, ABC, ABC, ABC. There is no formula. Matt has to figure out who Matt is and what works for Matt. He has to figure out his morning routine. Do I think you should have a morning routine? Yes. Do I think there's a perfect one? No, I don't. Right? You have to be able to figure out what works for you, what makes you tick. And the entrepreneur society is jumping on someone's morning routine. Let's say Grant Cardone posts his morning routine. 2 million entrepreneurs then all of a sudden think that's got to be their morning routine. And it's like, dude, no, you got to figure out what works for you, you know? And it's sad, but it's some people fear to go down and try to figure out for themselves. But I'm telling you, it'll be the best thing you've ever done.
Yeah, it's this idea of like you want the outcome, like you want the result, but you're not prepared to do the work on yourself to get that outcome.
And what logic does that make?
Makes no logic. But this is what this is the thing, right? It's kind of like, well, Gary Vee does it like this. Like you must produce, 300 publish 300 content pieces a day, otherwise, you're not going to tap up the social graph or whatever. And I remember like when I was 26, I was young and I had two passions in life, like music and business. And I founded a record label, and Napster happened, and then the internet happened, and and I was just timing whatever, and I built this company and eventually sold it. So I was 26 years old, and I thought, fuck, I can walk on water,
Yeah.
And then I started I wanted to get into another space, and I started to learn about like what the leaders were doing in the space and that. And I made that mistake that you just described, where I took someone else's doctrine or philosophy, whatever you want to call it, and I went copy, paste, and fully expecting, as a consequence of pasting it in my own life, because hey, it's a formula, isn't it, Devin? That I would get that outcome. And when I didn't get that outcome, well, let me tell you what that did, because I was like, well, it must be me, right? It must be me, because clearly the formula's it's nothing to do with the formula, it's got everything to do with me. And I wound up blaming myself for a long time, too long in fact, around this my next business failed. And I also didn't realize at the time that, in this ambition of trying to scale things, like businesses will die. My last company, we had 55 people, doubled revenues every year for 3 years. COVID happened, and then suddenly everything changed, and so things, you think you're there, but you're not, and things change quite quickly. But it was this idea of like, when a business fails, it's not you that failed, it's just the business. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think oftentimes we become so married to our businesses. And by the way, this is an important point to talk about in the context of scale, because I think it's like 1 in 2 venture founders who raise money are not in charge after 3 years.
Yeah.
So where does that put you in your headspace? Because you're so intimately married to it. And I've seen the same principle play out in other contexts. One of those is when you sell. So I asked you, what do you want to do? Well, 100 million ARR, and then you want to offload it to a strategic acquirer. Cool, that's great. Have you thought about what you're going to do afterwards? So Bo Burlingham wrote this book called Finish Big, and he literally spoke to 300 founders who had sold their businesses for billions of dollars, and 9 out of 10 of them go into clinical depression because they have no sense of meaning and purpose anymore. So these are the things that, in the context of scale, I find really need to be discussed, right, and shared in an authentic way, because oftentimes it's just it's about the formula, right? Well, this is how you do it. It's like, no, it's not the thing. Yeah. It's not the truth.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I actually do think about the exit. I have a nonprofit that I'm super, super excited about, and It's called Showcase Hope. It's going to work with inner city schools. It'll allow entrepreneurs or people they think they want to be in business to apply. And these kids will most likely come from homes that mom works two jobs just to put food on the table, dad's locked up in prison, or mom and dad both try to make ends meet, paycheck to paycheck, and they feel like there's no hope to become a successful entrepreneur. Well, guess what? That was me, right? Mom was a factory worker, dad was a drug dealer, dad died at 21 from a heroin overdose, sister fought cancer, broken home, broken everything, right? And I want to be able to showcase that hope and teach them mindset, relationships, build a bare minimum product, sell that bare minimum product, then go raise your capital. 5 key principles, right? So that really, really keeps me going because it excites me. And I take in one student entrepreneur through a program in Indiana a year and kind of practice that. Right? I don't have a ton of time dedicated to it, but it's an 8-week program, one time a year, and that is what keeps me going, to keep that dignity piece. And I do have another idea for software as well. So,
of course you do.
Yeah, I got a platform that would completely disrupt insurance. Flip it on its head, upside down.
Let's go. You and me. I hate insurance companies.
Yeah, same. I think it's
dude. Like,
it's the most non-transparent, scammy feeling, dirty feeling business in the world. Like, I think insurance is messed up.
Yeah, it's nuts. We'll take a quick break, guys, and we'll be back. Scale your business with your own AI-powered digital marketing assistant. Sign up today and get $250 of your first month's ad spend back. Check out meetotis.com/rapid returns for more. Raising money for your startup? Well, why don't you close your next funding round fast? Get investor-focused media and FaceTime with relevant investors in days. Visit showworksmedia.com for more. That's showworks with an X, media.com. So, Devin, in the context of scale, what are you struggling with right now? What's keeping you up at night?
Nothing really, if I'm being honest. This sounds egotistical, whatever, however you want to take it. I don't necessarily lose sleep at night, but I struggle within the business is we have young leaders. We're a young company. I think the average age is like 30 years old, and I maybe bump that up a few. And I don't know exact median age, but we have young leaders that are self-centered. And so being able to get them to break out, release ego. Yes, they carry the title. Yes, they make big boy money, but getting them to think more about the team and bringing the team up, especially with, Kennected did a company reorganization and launched a new product in the last 45 days. A lot of change. So I'm needing my leaders the most right now. And there's some weakness there, and it's showing some cracks, So that's definitely the biggest struggle, and in the stressor within the business.
Yeah. So I want to have a quick bit of fun with you, Devin. If I gave you the keys to the Matt Brown Show time machine, and you could go back to yourself on day one of this thing, when you had no product, no customers, just a vision, like you described earlier, and you could give yourself a piece of advice about scaling a startup like Kennected, what would that piece of advice be?
Put more emphasis on product early on. I went sales, marketing, finance, then product for 2.5 years, and I think we'd be twice or triple the size if we went product, then finance, then marketing.
And by product, what do you mean exactly? You're focusing on a better product or mechanics around
better
that?
Product.
Yeah,
better product, better mechanics around product-led growth. We left a lot of money on the table and didn't understand our value till a year and a half, 2 years into the business.
It's interesting that here. And why in that order do you think? Is it because sales, you can't sell anything if your product doesn't keep customers around?
The reason, I would make that change is, we we focused on non-recurring revenue too much early on, and we should have been building the recurring revenue. Kennected didn't really break over $1.5 million annual recurring till a year and 8 months ago. And now, we'll finish this year around 14 million ARR, right? So what if we would have done that from day one? Where would we be at?
Yeah, it's
we had this, and we had the scarcity mindset of just get the money through the door. So it ended up being booked as service revenue.
Even if you are in a services space, like, retained income is, whether it's product or platform based or whether it's service, it like doesn't matter. Like if you are, just don't do project. Like this is another thing, or do it, but like from day one, think about, recurring income streams, because, we built a sizable business doing pipeline gen for tech brands. And this was the problem. So Microsoft and Oracle, SAP, these guys, when they plan, they don't plan annually, they plan quarterly. So they'll say, we've got $300,000 for, M365 for this quarter, Q3, from January to March. So you can't go to them and say, no, that's cool, pay us a retainer. They will never do that, because even if they wanted to, even if you have the best operating model and outcome imaginable, they just cannot absorb a retainer in their planning. And so we were forced to stick with project fees. And this is when we started to develop technology platforms and things like this. But, the feeling of having that recurring revenue and knowing that on day one, like on the first day of the month, like all your staff salaries are covered. You know what I mean? Like that feeling, it's like worlds apart from this like marathon of like uncertainty, right? It's nuts.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. Just the certainty. It gives you certainty.
Yeah, absolutely. Devin, let's wrap this up. What's one piece of advice you would give to a founder about scaling a company?
Prioritize selling the product. The product's never going to be perfect. Prioritize sales. I meet a lot of tech guys. I'm in a lot of tech masterminds, and I mentor one student a year that's tech focused, and they want to make sure the product is perfect. The product is perfect, guys. It'll never be perfect. Start selling. Start figuring out. And I really think the CEO should be involved in sales day to day for the first 6 to 12 months. I mean, a lot of CEOs, it's like, oh, why I don't have a sales guy? I'm like, you are the sales guy. Start selling. And then another piece of advice I always throw out there is, you don't have an ego. I know you got an awesome product and you got a great vision and you probably got a little bit of money coming in, but no ego. Always be a student. Approach life with servant leadership, and doors will open and opportunities will present themselves that you never thought was imaginable or possible. And so those two biggest pieces of advice for any fellow tech founder listening right now.
Yeah, Sean Corson, CFO for Dacity, he said it really well. He said, "There's no silver bullet, there's only lead bullets. So keep shooting."
Yeah, yeah, got to keep firing, baby.
Yeah.
Massive action, baby.
There we go, Devin. Thanks so much for your time, dude. I know you're a busy man. It's been tough getting you on here, and I'm glad I didn't cancel. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and feeling re-energized. So thank you.
Let's go, baby. I'll see you, man. I appreciate it, buddy.
Anytime. Cheers, guys.
See you.